Welcome back to Exploring Distant Worlds. We are about 25 years in. It's our 20th episode, and we have reached the point where the Akuro Commonwealth can barely see all of it on the screen, top to bottom here. We have just colonized Ventuani. Went in here a little bit early because this was almost right exactly on the border over here with the Gundeni, and I didn't want them to seize it. So if they got it within their territory, then I wouldn't have been able to take it. So I wanted to make sure I did that. But that is all in place and going excellently. I'm going to declare the Pirate Wars over now because we have one fleet coming up here and we're just going to smash these in here real quick and on Taurus. But really, they're going away very quickly. And our fleets have now been freed up to the point where they can just go hit them whenever they show up. And there's really no big bases within range of my territory that I want to, continue sending ships out after these are gone. And there goes that one. You are now done. And the group, by the way, over here that was in Camas at the end of the last episode, we did not even have to fight them. That right there was the Ancient Guardians that knocked those out for us. So we're getting quite a bit of help there. And there's some interesting things that have begun to happen. On the diplomatic front, let's see what's a good example. If we look at the Gurkha Empire, they are envious of our huge strength and power. So our empire is getting large and strong enough that some of the wimpier races are starting to not like us simply because we are bigger and badder than them. Our reputation has been skyrocketing. We're now up to admired. It wasn't going up at all for quite a while, but now just everybody thinks that we are just fantastic. We've got all these free trade agreements. Not actually that much trade really even going on, but we're still doing very well. I think the other economies are just sort of still developing a bit. Now on our comparison screen, I haven't seen this in a while, our economy, the blue bar, you can just see how big that is compared to everybody else. That's the part where we're really kicking butt. But overall, we're back up to 47%. We got 34, 31, 30 is our main competition. We're just sort of hanging out in the middle there on that continental colonies bit. We've got 16 of the 25% in the economy, and the population and territory not doing nearly as well, but we're still doing okay there. On the population side, though, we now have the largest population above the Ancient Guardians, so that's just sort of a nice weather mark for us to exceed. Of course, a few of these, not that far behind us. Territory, the Gundeni are kind of blowing up. I don't think we're going to catch them, at least not anytime soon. They've actually conquered, apparently, a couple of these. But maybe we can hang out in here and take in second place. In any case, you've got your various tiers as we go down. The economy, we're gradually gaining ground on the Ancient Guardians, but, again, we're staying pretty much at least twice as big as everybody else. Lead is extending in strategic value, military strength is keeping pretty strong. We haven't actually built any carriers yet because we haven't really had the money, been spending it on wonders and retrofitting and all of that. So we are not really expanding too much right now, but obviously more than capable of handling anything that comes our way. And you can see Akuro here, or Reese rather, is 15.5 billion. So it's probably not that far now from maxing out at maybe, 18, 19 million, whatever it's going to end up at. But still the only one that we have in the top 10 as we try to grow. On the colonies front, Reese has all of these different facilities. On Akuro, we are almost finished with the Trader's Bazaar, and then the holographic network will be up next. Now, I was thinking about doing a new design for a spaceport because now that we're up over here in Ubas system in Karabia, that's a solid 2 sectors away, and at that point, there are some different options you can do, but I like to build large spaceports every couple of sectors out so that we have good resource distribution. So I thought about designing a new one, but I've decided against that. Basically, the one I have on Reese has, it's 100 docking bays and I think 27 construction yards, 25 docking bays and 18 construction yards on the medium ones. And I'm thinking I just want to make this a copy of my other spaceport in here. So I'm probably going to rename that to the large spaceport at some point when I do my next retrofitting. But in this particular case, we are just going to have you expand and get bigger, and we're going to spend 16,000. Okay, that's a decent little chunk of change. And it's also time now for us to do some more research as we go through things. So weapons, we had 17 of these last time, and now we've got 12 more to go. Of course, we are working on still the 4th tier. So that's pretty much going to take care of itself. Energy and construction, we're on the last one, which is the advanced jump stalling. Next level up, 480 range, still not that great on our hyper jump inhibitors. But after that, we are pretty much out of things we need for this 4th tier in terms of things I want right away. So I want to go up to the 5th tier next. And before I get my next construction size increase, I want to see, okay, what are the key things in here I want? Well, robotic defenses, cheap robotic troops, they can be built quickly, but we don't really need those particularly yet. Improved energy collectors, improved mining. Again, these are all nice to have, nothing particularly spectacular. I don't really want to go into, again, these engines again until I get all the way up to this direction. Now, the next hyperjump one, though, is interesting. It goes all the way up from, 480 to sort of the 2nd generation of those. And then they're at 1020. And getting out to that range, I think, is very useful to use. So I think this is probably the first one I'm going to want to put on my ships. And I could do that next, so that's one to consider. Then, okay, we've got the next level of hyperdrives. Now, this one, the Equinox hyperdrive, uses quite a bit more energy, 105 compared to 88, but also a 5,000 speed jump. So I'm definitely going to want that, and also 1 second faster. Then I probably want to get up to this shield projection before too much longer, although not necessarily immediately. We could upgrade our shields here at some point, and then the reactor. So the question is, what do I want to get now before I redesign the ships? And I think I want to have my energy in place, and I also want to have this in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for the reactor first, just so I'm producing plenty of energy for everything else. And then we'll get the hyperdrive, and then the hyper deny. And then I will go up here to get our next size increase up to 650, boosting all of our weapons plants and all the other plants as well. And so once I get that in place, then I can come back in and get some more of the upgrade kinds of things. Like, for example, I think I'm definitely going to want to grab those shields. I think would be my next bit on the agenda, and probably come up here and get this planetary shield. And that's probably more than enough for now. We can come back later and see what else we're going to want. But we're going to now be getting into then, I believe, what is this? The 5th tier. Yeah. Into some really meat in the 5th tier of energy and construction. Now, high-tech and industrial. We are working on our last of the wonders here. We were setting up the advanced metacomplex to boost growth rate. Of course, that's also going to go on Akuro if we can get it up in time. So then, what's next? Well, we really need to come back in this route and just knock out all of this tier 4 stuff. But of course, the order is questionable. And if we're not that long away from some new redesigns again, then I think I'm going to want to get maybe the fleet countermeasures, the fleet targeting. I think those are probably next on the agenda. Yeah, so let's go ahead and grab those. Let's make sure we can have those. And I also want to come back down here and get, again, I'm not too worried about the docking, but I'm going to get the enhanced crew systems to get our next level up in those. Passenger and troop transport, we'll want to get those. Then we've got all these scanners, including the new one is the trace scanner. As you can see by the description there, we'll be able to actually scan what components a ship has without capturing it. So that'll be interesting. Like, for example, we would be able to see what's on one of the Ancient Guardian ship if we wanted. But these scanners, I think, are more important to me, especially the long-range scanner. So we'll sort of get those first. And then we'll just sort of fill in, okay, what else is in this tier? Again, we'll skip the docking for now. This right here, the regional capitals, as we continue to expand out, we're definitely going to want to be able to lower our corruption there. So I think we're going to drop down to this. And then although I don't need to set it up yet, after that, I will want to go up to the next tier here. And actually, there is another wonder that's coming here. The Danula Engineering Center, which is going to boost our energy research. I think that's the only additional wonder that we can get this way. So we're definitely going to want to grab that after we knock all of these out. And that will, of course, be plenty to last us quite some while. Our overall research ability, well over 1 million here in the weapons, and the other one's coming pretty quickly as well. So anything that's in like that 4th tier is going to go really fast. And the weapons, we're going to be knocking out more than 2 of these a year. So even though we've got a dozen of them to go, that's probably gone in 5 years. And maybe even less than that. The galaxy has changed, and the final phase of Distant Worlds is now about to begin. The Galactic War is upon us. The great conflict of our time. So, the Davella Hive have declared war on the Holtumu Federation, which militarily, they're pretty intelligent race, being the Actarians, but militarily they're quite weak, and the Davella are not. So this 8th Fleet is going off. War was declared on October 25th, so a month and a half or so ago. And you can see the logic in what they're choosing to do, because we've got the Gindeni up here, and we're sort of blocking off from this direction. There's this small little race down here, but we've got the Utrantu. They're also insectoids, so they can be biased against going to war with them. Katame Dominion here are not much weaker militarily, and they're number 2 overall in our victory points rundown. So, really, this is a good, nearby, weak empire, and they're going to try to cross the nebulas here, the Iton Zone and the Thalaton Fog, and knock them out. And they will almost certainly be successful. If we take a look at that comparison here in terms of military strength, Davella Hive, okay, almost 5,000. Of course, we're sitting up here at 27, 28,000, much higher. But the Holtumu Federation, just several hundred. So, clearly a one-sided war, and I would not expect it to last long. I think the Actarians would get crushed. Now, we are going to jump in here, and thematically, sort of the choice that we can make, I don't want to do a bunch of aggressive wars in this game and try to end the game early. I could have already done some conquering had I really wanted to. But I am going to take advantage. Why would we let, an aggressive neighbor who is basically just, never going to be a reliable part of the galactic community conquer a weaker neighbor to them and get stronger? We should put our 2 cents in and prevent that from happening to the extent that we can. So our fleet's going to be fine, but we have to concern ourselves with our ground troops. You need a lot of ground troops to start a war. So if we take a look here, and this is our troop screen. We have not seen this really in detail before, but this is everything that we have queued up so far, and you can see the difference between the armor and the infantry and all of that. But we are going to need to take down a homeworld. Let's say we go after the Gazurian homeworld. Well, I mean, that's going to take dozens and dozens and dozens of armor. And we only have about a dozen of these. But you can see the attack strength is much better than the infantry. And, the Shandar militia here are a weaker form of infantry, defense, all the maintenance costs, all of that along here. We need to get a whole bunch of troops going as quickly as we can. If we look at what we're up against, so there's a weak planets like over here in Zagaba. They recently, I should say, colonized this and Gemheim? Okay, whatever you want to call it. But they only have one unit here and 12k strength. So we could easily run that over. You can see it's a very young colony, 145 million. All right, fine. Now, here, of course, is their capital. If we dive in here, and they have all kinds of things all over their home system, as you would expect, fleets here, etc. But this is Ridri, which is their home planet. And because we're seeing all this, of course, because we have our spy in here in deep cover. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see it exactly. But look at all this. Look at all these troops. Wow, isn't that special? So they have just 18 infantry, 14 armored, that we would have to deal with. And that's not counting any defensive facilities. They are building some things there. They have an armored factory in place. And they're maxed out. You can see their population completely maxed out, over 16 billion. So, yeah. We're not just going to be able to walk in there with a dozen tanks and say, hey, this is ours. So to begin with, where do we want to recruit from then? Now, the majority race on a planet is what you're going to get in terms of your troops. So, on Reese here, I was going with some special forces. I was beginning to recruit those. I'm actually going to stop at the one here because I just want to recruit more troops in general. This is where our armored factory is, so I'm going to want to grab a bunch more tanks. But we don't just want the armored. So if we... I'll just queue up 6 more for the moment. And then we're also going to want infantry for garrison duties. After you take over a planet, you've got to suppress the population from not constantly revolting. It's probably going to happen some to us anyway. And the insectoids in particular really like to revolt. So I expect to have a big problem with that. We're going to want to have a whole bunch of infantry. I don't really want to produce it on all of these planets that are less than 2 billion. They will recruit slower. And some of them are still recruiting their garrisons and whatnot. So that means we're sort of stuck with, okay, just these 3 additional planets that could recruit, okay? And I don't want to do, Endosan here because the Shandar troops will be weaker. So, I mean, you could potentially use them, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to recruit from Akuro and from Brax. Our troops are stronger than the other ones. If we just go back to the troop screen, I want to really show the comparison of that, perhaps a little bit more closely. So the Shandar militia, 10,500 attack, 14,100 defense. You can also see the maintenance. By the way, the readiness here, you can see the 53 for our special forces because they're only halfway done recruiting. And then you can see this one's only at 7. So if they're partially underway, they will be less than 100. If they're at 100, that means they're ready to go and it is time for battle for them. At least they're fully prepared for it. So if I take my other 2 colonies and just begin spam recruiting, my infantry units on those, I don't need the planetary defense. Those will not be necessary. And of course, they're recruiting their garrison ones here, which I'd forgotten to do before. But once they're done, then they'll recruit more for us. Now, we have a couple of troop ships. And if we go back to Reese, I will be able to give the ships, which we'll show a little bit later, orders to load troops from the planet. And what you want to do is make sure that they only take what you want them to take. So, for example, I'm going to want to keep these 2 here as garrisons. So if we just select them, then we can hit the garrison button. And then they will turn green here. And now they will not board any troop ships that are told to load troops from the planet. They will only board the troops that are available and not garrisoned. So that's how you control all of that. Then I'm going to want more troop ships because I think I'm going to want to have at least a couple to go in on the invasion. And then the 3 locations we're taking from are here, here, and here. And I'm going to want to use Halmat as a staging area. So I'm going to want to have troop ships to ferry my ships all the way up to here so they're in a good location and they can quickly move into what we're going to call the battle zone. Now, while I'm doing all of this, I am not actually telling the Gazurians what I'm going to do. We're going to take a big hit to our reputation if we attack them unprovoked. So I will declare war eventually, but I want to be prepared for it first. So let's go ahead. And we are going to get some more ships rolling. Yeah, on Reese, that's where I want to be. And we're just going to get some more troop ships. I should have a second one around here. Yep, there it is. Just had to find the right one. And I'm going to build 4 more of these, just so I can have 2 to 3 in the combat zone and then 3 ferrying all of my troops back and forth. And I probably don't need that many, but again, I want to be safe rather than sorry. Now, in terms of our fleet, we have one that has returned here. I'm going to sort of get them oriented and get them headed that way. I will also head this way with the troop ships for the troops that I have currently available while we continue to recruit more. We just finished stomping the pirates over here in Urgasho, and our second fleet is on its way back. So they will be able to refuel and all of that, but they're going to take a little bit of time to get in action here. We've now moved our troop ships and our invasion fleet here into Halmat. If we take a look at that, by the way, I've stopped building the marine frigates now, as I don't really think, I'm not going to retrofit them or anything. They're just going to last as long as they last. See, I've got 60-some ships, probably between a third and a quarter of my overall fleet power tied up in there, so I've definitely expanded that fleet. But the enemy ships that we have run into so far, pirates and everything, they're just not, I don't think it's worth trying to capture a bunch of them. So beyond how long the Marine frigates run out, that's just how long it's going to be. But if we take a look at what's happening over here, see the Ackdarians have already lost one system. So this is going quickly to the Gazurians. Now, if we take a look at how then those troop ships work, if I jump in, and I've just divided them up into fleets, you know, like say this is just the fleet that's going to ferry troops from Akuro. So we're just going to right-click on the planet and have them load whatever's there. Now notice it says it has no units on it right now. If we look at what's on the planet, I've got 2 garrisoned, 2 more finished, and then 4 more on the way. So we've got part of this, and of course, that's our wonderful Boscaran governor. So we're just going to give this some time to make its way over to the planet. And of course, while this is going on, like our exploration ships, all of that's still going. I just built my first batch of carriers. But we are still needing to do all of that in between the war. So we're just going to wait for this to do its thing. And of course, you might say, why not design smaller troop ships for this? Well, it's actually not going to make much difference, because almost all their fuel's tied up in, you know, long distance travel. And hyperdrives are going to consume the fuel regardless how big the ship is. But now you can see we're at 34k strength, 200 of 4550 space is occupied, and we have 2 infantry. And now we can go ahead and send them off, where of course what they're going to be doing is going off to Halmat, dropping those troops off, then coming back. So the war with the Gazurians will actually take place starting in the next episode. We're a bit long on time here, and there's a lot to do relating to that, so I wouldn't be able to do much of anything but scratch the surface. Probably going to last quite a while, but we will see exactly how all that goes, and there's going to be some more complications coming up. So excited to get into this final phase of Distant Worlds, although the game will be going on for quite some time. Looking forward to everybody's feedback on the war beginning. And I'll see you next time with more Distant Worlds.